Kerblogs on Film.
Talking about anime.
Kerblogs on Film. Nobody asked for this one, but I decided that I really, really wanted to take this time for Anime April to talk about a show that's very, very near and dear to my heart, and there's so few people I've ever met in my life who've seen it. For my second installment, once again, I'm definitely going out of order in terms of when I got into a lot of these shows and what the impact they had on my life and everything. I got into this little show by Gonzo Animation called Speedgrapher, or Speedgrapher, however you want to pronounce it. In my first year of college, I believe. I wish I could remember exactly how it was that I got into it. I think that it was just a time in my life where I was really just exploring and watching a lot of different anime, particularly when Funimation was just putting out like more and more and more and more shows every year on a more consistent basis. By that time, they actually had some kind of like special deal, I think, with Gonzo Animation where they were putting out like a lot of their shows on DVD and dubbing a lot of their series. And I was watching stuff like Burst Angel and things like that, and trying out other random ones like Tsukiyomi Moon Phase and Hell Girl and lots of stuff like that. And there were a lot of shows that kind of came and went that I was like, all right, that was okay, or I was kind of into that, and that was all right. But this show in particular was one that really, really stood out to me, and I just kind of picked it up one day, and I think I was just immediately hooked into it. And I'm going to kind of use this Kerblog more so as a because of the fact that I feel there's so few people who really even like were aware of the show or gave it a shot or watched it at all. I'm kind of going to use this as a platform for pitching to get you to watch it, because I'll say ahead of time that it's all, at the moment that I'm recording this, available to watch for free on Funimation's website, the entire series from beginning to end. And I would absolutely highly recommend you check it out. It's 26 episodes. It's not a super long series. You can, Netflix style marathon that shit very quickly. But so basically, okay, my one phrase description for Speedgrapher is it's X-Men meets Cowboy Bebop meets hot sweaty sex. That said, it is absolutely not a show intended for children at all. So, again, I never know exactly what the general age range of my listenership is, but yeah, just bear that in mind. It's, and also I'll say, because it's relatively violent, its subject matter is relatively hardcore, not in like a shock value way, because then I wouldn't enjoy the show if it was. It's very, very interesting and very cerebral, but it is super violent. It's got a lot of, uncomfortable, subject material to it. So, if there's certain topics that you're sensitive to or a little squeamish of or whatever, totally understandable. But I really love this series a lot, and I want to give it its proper due. So, Speedgrapher is a show that stars a wartime photographer / detective named Saiga, and he is investigating this case where this underground cult that's run by all of the richest people in the city. I forget where in Japan he is, but they're running this big cult where supposedly people get blessed by this mysterious goddess, and she instills them with supernatural powers that are their desires come to life. And we find out that the goddess in question is this little girl named Kagura. She's about 15 years old, and basically she has some kind of strange thing going on with the chemicals in her body that awakens some kind of dormant supernatural ability within human beings. I think it's only for certain ones, depending on if they have some kind of like genetic thing inherently or something like that. I don't quite remember, but it's been a little while since I've rewatched the show. But basically, a bunch of these rich douchebag people from around the city who are part of this club have been given superpowers that are more or less inspired by their sick or very particular fetishes. So it's and then Saiga, while investigating the case, he finds this girl and he rescues her. She's been being used and abused by her mother, Miss Tenozu, who's kind of the one running all this, the whole operation, along with her lover Suitengu, who's also a rich piece of shit in and of himself. He rescues her. From there on out, the rest of the series is more or less the two of them running away, and Saiga trying to protect Kagura from being kidnapped again and captured and used and abused by her mother and Suitengu and this whole cult to further their own disgusting, selfish purposes. And they develop a very, kind of father-daughter sort of bond. He's kind of like the father figure that she never really had, more or less. And along the way, they basically get chased after by members of the club who were instilled with powers from Kagura while I think she was put under some sort of like hypnosis or, psychosis or something to, be used to give these people their powers and everything. So there's characters with, very, I don't want to say gimmicky, but very, very unique and very cool powers. There's a guy, I won't spoil too many of them, but like there's a guy who is a ballet dancer, who, loves the idea of like, stretching and contorting, his body in beautiful shapes and, being very elegant. So he has like, he's a very like fucked up kind of, Mr. Fantastic, or, the stretchy general, mutant character kind of guy. There's a guy who has who is, I believe he's a tattoo artist, and he can create tattoos and then actually bring whatever he tattoos onto himself to life. So he has like weapons and things like that, stuff like that. And then so the main source of defense, more or less, is Saiga was forcibly given a superpower when Kagura was being hypnotized, and the cult was like doing something with him in the first episode, more or less. Okay, this is like the first episode stuff, so I'm not hopefully spoiling too much, more or less. But he gets given a superpower through Kagura. And so because he was a wartime photographer, and he had this interesting experience of when he'd be taking pictures of people as they were getting shot, and like, he was literally taking pictures of the chaos happening in this war. And there's more to that as well that, we get into later on. But he was getting like super excited and even like, maybe to like a sexual kind of way by the prospect of that. And it's like kind of fucked up, and it's something that he like regrets and knows is like a deep-seated issue for him or whatever. And basically that ends up manifesting as his ability. So he has his, his old school Polaroid camera. And when he takes a picture of somebody with it, his eye gets all like Sharingan-esque, kind of like, Naruto sort of thing. And he can cause whatever he takes a picture of through his lens to explode. So it's almost like a shotgun, like, burst effect kind of thing. And also the depending on what type of camera it is, like depending on like the power of the lens, like how high quality the picture is or how far it reaches kind of thing, the bigger the explosion will be. So, so the kind of thing that I really love about the show, it really captured me because, there's plenty of like, action kind of stories like that with lots of cool special powers and things. For one thing, I mean, I am a big sucker for cool special powers, so that was definitely something in the beginning that was like, oh, this is kind of cool, okay, because a lot of the, villains of the week kind of characters were definitely hooking me in the beginning, where it's like, oh, they have like really, really interesting kind of abilities that I've not really think I've seen much of in quite this way before. Even like the stretchy guy, which I mentioned, like the fact that he was like this like very strange, like, eccentric ballet dancer kind of guy. Was like one example, and there's lots and lots of other ones too that it gets cooler and like more interesting than that. But what was really hooking me is this was, I think, around the time when I was really beginning to love the types of stories where it's a very, very small cast of good guys and they feel like the whole world is against them, and it's them versus the world, and not in the Scott Pilgrim sense. It's like Saiga and Kagura have very, very few characters in the entire, in the entire setting of the story that they can trust, if at all. And it's really them just trying as much as possible to escape. And he bonds with this girl, and he really like wants to protect her and like get her to a safe place because he sees all this like shit that she's going through, and she clings to him like a father figure. It's a really, really amazingly powerful relationship between these two characters. Those of you who are big fans of Funimation stuff, Chris Sabat plays Saiga, and Monica Rial plays Kagura, and they're both amazing. The dub in particular was directed by Christopher Bevins, who has done, in my opinion, some of the best dubs that Funimation's done, consistently. Like just about every show he's ever worked on, I've really, really enjoyed the dub work on. It's an amazing cast of people. J. Michael Tatum's in there, Kent Williams, Clarion Harp, a lot of really great actors are all scattered throughout, and lots more. Christopher Ayers also voices Sweet Tengu, the main villain, who is also a very interesting character. We kind of learned a lot more about him, I think the most in depth of the other supporting and antagonistic characters, and as well as Madame Tenozu, who is Kagura's mom, the kind of fun enforcer trio that works underneath the two of them, and again, even like the villain of the week characters like have kind of like an interesting story, like self-contained to each episode about each of them. There's this crazy cop who's just like fixated on Saiga. I can't remember her name, but she's like the super sexy lead action girl police officer who works with Saiga when he becomes a detective. And it's she has an interesting deal kind of with her, an unexpected kind of arc with her throughout the show. But yeah, the show just like unexpectedly grabbed me. Like it's funny because I think from remembering that time like in college when I was just like buying up and like watching a lot of these different shows that Funimation was putting out, I remember that even ones that I collected like the full series of like Hell Girl was another one that I just like bought all 6 DVDs of that full series, and it was enough to like get me interested. But that was a show that I got to the end of, and I was just like, man, there's nothing really much about that show that stood out to me all that much. Like it was an enjoyable ride, but it was whatever. I think just like on a whim, I gave this one a shot. I really do wish I could remember exactly what it was that made me give it a shot. But I was like immediately grabbed by it within the first DVD release, and it's gone down as like one of my favorite kind of like more obscure anime series. Of the few people that I have talked to about it who have seen it, I think the one kind of consistent criticism I've heard of it in terms of like its shortcomings are it's very like it beats you over the head sometimes with the whole like money is corrupt and it's evil and it corrupts people kind of thing. And I guess fair enough. There is a fair sense of that, especially with kind of how things with the villain characters kind of unfold, and as you learn more about them and like what it is that they're doing and what their motivation is and everything. I can understand that, but to me, it's much more about the relationship between Saiga and Kagura, like just their whole journey together, and again that whole kind of format of like very small cast of main characters like against the world, and there's so few people that they can trust kind of thing. There's something like it's really like heart pounding, and like it's a type of setting, like a figurative setting, I guess you could say, that makes for really really amazing character dynamics and bonding experiences in particular. Because, it's funny, there's even a joke, this isn't a spoiler, there's a joke made by one of the villain characters about, like, Saiga and Kagura traveling together, and one of them is like, oh, how much you want to bet he's banging her right now? And then, one of the other characters is like, no, euphorics, which euphorics are what they call the characters that have been given special powers by her. Euphorics need something very particular to get off or something like that. But basically, it's like they're joking, like, haha, yeah, it's really easy to make the commentary of like, oh, I bet like they're fucking or whatever, like, oh, is this like glorifying like underage relationships or whatever. It does not come off that way at all. Like you have to definitely see it for yourself to get that, because I don't know, maybe it is easy for people to look at here's an older guy character and then a young teenage girl character is like, oh, like wait, the accusations just are like really easy to just go straight to, but it really is genuinely like a father-daughter relationship between Saiga and Kagura. And again, that is the main thing that got me like absolutely into the show. Is just the whole shit. They literally go to hell and back, more or less. Well, not literally, because there are some anime where you literally do that. Literally, have I said that enough? Good. But yeah, just there's something special about the show, and even I hear often even criticisms about like Studio Gonzo's stuff. I know that Last Exile is like the one show that everybody seems to like kind of all around be a fan of. Like, and to be fair, like Burst Angel and some of their other series that I watched for a while like weren't amazing. I think I was just like blown away at first by like how visually cool they were, and then the magic of the story kind of died for me. But I've gone back and rewatched Speed Griffer. I think maybe like a few years ago now. I can't remember how long ago it was, but I rewatched it again, and I was like, oh, this show is still fantastic. And it's one that I just like wish a lot more people like would be aware of. Shows like that just kind of come and go, and they just for one reason or another, regardless of how good they are, they just kind of slip under the radar. And Speedgrapher is one that I feel deserves a lot more attention than it has. On my break a second ago between recording this, I have noticed actually that the uploads of it on the Funimation website are actually for members only. But if you happen to be a member of their their service with lots of free streaming anime, I'm basically now turning this into a commercial for them. So you're welcome, Funimation, I guess. Go check it out, or if not, consider it. And also, I think the full series is on a box set. It's relatively cheap. It's got the full 26 episodes on it. I really highly recommend that you watch this show. It is absolutely worth it. There's few shows that I would say please watch it, especially because a lot of the ones that I'm deep into are multiple seasons and go on for a long time. They're very difficult kind of jumping off points, like Dragon Ball and One Piece and a lot of the shonen stuff. But Speedgrapher is relatively digest, and it's when you get into it, I feel like by and large, if you're into the type of stuff that I've just described from this past 15 minutes or so, you're gonna get hooked pretty quickly. You'll see hopefully what I see in this show and why it's been so endearing to me. It ended up being a relatively big inspiration too. I think more than even I would have expected. Where it's just ideas of wanting to get a little bit more inventive with with utilizing superpowers and exactly how you frame a bonding experience between different characters and depending on what the stakes are and what the situation that they're in, how much pressure there is and everything. It ended up being a really meaningful kind of show, and it's the reason why it. And another one that also happens to be voice directed in part by Christopher Bevins that I'll be talking about probably soon are two of my more obscure favorite anime series. If you know my list of which ones I'm going to be talking about, you'll probably know which one's coming next. But yeah, so I'll have a link to that in the description below if you want to check it out. That's kind of going to wrap this one up, a little shorter than usual. But in the comments below, if you have seen Speedgrapher before, tell me your thoughts on it. Did you have any particular favorite aspects, favorite characters, or moments, or anything like that about the series? Were you not a big fan of it? Did it not really do a whole lot for you or anything? Let me know. And in the meantime, if you have not seen the series, please, I do implore you to give it a shot. And I think it would be worth it to give it a shot. You're taking a picture, a shot with your camera. I'm going to go now. Thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying Anime April so far in this first week. And I will continue onward very soon. I will catch you all later. Bye-bye.